longest-serving monarch to mark the end of a reign that defined an era.
The Queen's lifelong sense of duty has been remembered at her state funeral service at Westminster Abbey. 2,000 people, including world leaders and royalty, attended the funeral, and crowds lined the streets for the procession of the coffin. King Charles III led the somber procession behind his mother's coffin from Westminster's Hall to the Abbey. A small committal ceremony attended by about 800 guests was held at the St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. Guns were fired and bells tolled to mark the Queen's arrival in Windsor after he travelled there from London. King Charles, Princess Anne, Princes Andrew and Edward, as well as Princes William and Harry, walked behind the hearse in the final procession. Before the Queen's body was taken for burial next to her husband of more than 70 years at a private family service. Earlier, the Dean of Westminster, Reverend David Hoyle, began the morning service at the Abbey by speaking of the Queen's answering commitment to a high calling over so many years as Queen and the head of the Commonwealth. The congregation sang the Lord's My Shepherd, a hymn sung at the wedding of the Queen of the late Duke of Edinburgh, which was also held at the Abbey. The phrase was used by the Queen in a rare address to the nation at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. As the Abbey service came towards its end, the last post was played by the same musicians who performed it at the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. The nation came to a standstill for 2 minutes of silence. A piper then played a traditional lament before the King stood silently as the national anthem was sung. Among the personal touches was a handwritten message from the King, which was placed on top of the coffin in a wreath of flowers cut from the gardens of Buckingham Palace, Highgrove House and Clarence House at his request. The Queen's death marks the end of a 70-year reign that defined an era. Brian Amwai, Look Up TV.
The increased high cost of fuel has now affected the entire